I'm still in Eugene, Oregon. My mom got a new bionic hip about a little over 3 weeks ago. But before she can use her superhuman powers, she has to go through a number of trials and obstacles. But the physical therapist said that as far as driving, if she goes out to a really big empty parking lot and, like a 15-year-old gets out there and practices, that's kind of how we get her back in shape for driving. So we may do that this afternoon, or we may just blow the whole day off. A lot of farmers and market gardeners, when they're getting started, they want to get some really hands-on education. And so a lot of people go woofing and work on a little farm somewhere and get experience that way. But one thing I haven't seen as much is people getting a job at, say, a grocery store in the produce department. And I did do that back when I lived in Port Townsend, Washington, and I was thinking, I want to be a market gardener. Not only did I go to Frog Hill Farm and do their work trade program to get hands-on training that way, I also ended up getting a job at the food co-op in Port Townsend. And in the produce department, I was just a produce stalker, getting $10 an hour. And it was such a great education because you see, what happens seasonally, what's going on in winter and what's going on in summertime. So the different farms, we would get stuff in the summer from a lot of little local farms. So Nash's Farm was a big one in Squim, and they'd come in with their pickup truck with cabbages and carrots and everything. And then at the same time, we would also get some stuff coming up from other farms in Oregon, and even stuff from, California and stuff. And so we'd have Organically Grown Company and Charlie's Produce coming with their trucks, and we'd be unloading pallets of that stuff and looking at that stuff. And then during the winter time, you could see some of the other things. Some of the storage crops were available still from local farms, but then you could be getting a lot more stuff from California and Mexico. And just the real detailed stuff. You can see what customers are buying, what time of year, what if you have 3 or 4 varieties of kale out, which one sells the best. So for example, I found out that the best-selling kale was Italian kale. The next best-selling kale was a red boar kale. And then the next one after that was just a plain old, green kale. And then sometimes if we had red Russian kale in from a local farm or something, because people didn't see it as often, they were, a little reluctant to buy it. And so you kind of just see those kinds of things over and over again. And then just like presentation. I remember I had this little thing going with one of the people I worked with. We had this romaine lettuce and the tips were burnt, and then some of the outer leaves looked worse than some of the inner leaves. And he said, hey, let's just put it out and let the customer decide, what they want to get rid of, because it's you buy it by the each, it's not sold by the pound. So if they don't like those outer leaves, they can just pull those off and throw them away, You know what? They didn't sell. They just sat there until you pull off a few outer leaves, put it back out there, and then they start selling. And so it's little things like that, how do you prep them so that people want to buy them. And just there's so many things that you can learn from working at a grocery store. But I just think that, a grocery store is a shit job. Who's going to want to do it? It's kind of cool to work on a farm, but who wants to work in a grocery store? Only some kid right out of high school is going to take that job. But it's just such a great learning experience. So I encourage anybody who wants to have their own farm eventually to get a job for a little while at a grocery store and learn the ropes. Because I felt like I just learned so much when I worked there. And then of course later on I had my own little produce and grocery store in Wrangell and learned even more, because what you'll find then in some locations, people have these eating habits like this, and in other locations it might be a little bit different. You'll see some commonalities, but it might be a little different in your area. So that's important to learn and know. So yeah, get a job at a grocery store. It's another way to become good at market gardening. Sundance is my absolute favorite grocery store in Eugene, Oregon. When I had my store in Wrangell, I wanted to be the mini-me of this little store. And let's be real, the only reason I'm doing this video is just an excuse to wander around and document my favorite grocery store. There are 3 small sections in this grocery store. This here is the grocery section. There is a produce section in the center, and then there is a deli beverage section in the back. I would say that almost fully half of their grocery is in bulk. This is their tiny household goods section. This next aisle is herbs and spices and teas and things. Packaged cereals and other packaged groceries, and only one aisle of frozen items. One longer row of refrigerated items. Somehow they managed to just jam everything up to the ceiling in here, and I can pretty much get whatever I need. Now let's look at the produce section. You know you're looking at pros when they've got their potatoes covered with cloths so that they don't turn green and sprout. Their herbs are all cut and put in water so that they stay fresh, and they've got them in these cute little different containers for each of the different kinds. They have their packaged nuts in the produce section under refrigeration so that they don't go rancid as quickly. They have half heads of cabbage available and individual stalks of celery if people just want a little bit. Back behind the citrus section here, they have 50% off on fruits and vegetables that have some blemishes, so then they don't end up throwing away as much produce and people get a deal. This is such a tiny produce area, and the way they manage it is they've always got somebody out constantly stocking it. In the next section, the deli section, they have some prepared foods, and in the corner they have a coffee tea little section here, and then some hot foods. In the back they have some cheeses and some beer and wine, and then they got a little section here of dried fruit and some juices on the shelves here. I always wanted my store to be a tinier version of Sundance. But you know, I never thought I would sell the store, so I didn't get any good video or pictures of the inside. I've got this one video that I made for my family on a rainy day when I hadn't had very many customers. But I had sold some things, so the produce isn't pumped up like it would normally be at the beginning of the day. You're going to hear this loud humming sound in the background, and what that is the industrial fan for the Trident fish plant across the street. And it's just really loud all summer long. Okay. I'm going to take a video of the store. There's only been a little over 20 people in the store today because it's pouring down rain outside. See, that's outside, pouring down rain. And this is all the food that has not sold yet. And I am fucked. Carrots. I threw in this old photo to round up the picture on the wet side. And more corn over here. And this is extra stuff in the box. Tomatoes, figs, grapes. Melons, potatoes. This is all the stuff that somehow, I don't know how, I was going to have to go into a refrigerator. Well, the fruit can stay out. And here's a photo of the dry side of the produce island. And kiwis and the biggest mangoes in the whole world. The front of the produce island with tropical fruit and snacks. There you go. That's just grocery stuff. The shelves and the display refrigerators in this video are looking a little bit bare because I was waiting for a grocery shipment on the barge the following week. So here's an older photo of things when they were stocked up. And an older photo of the shelves on the left side of the store. Yeah, my beverages are low. Anyway, that's what a rainy day will do to you. This is what things look like after I put everything away. I sold the produce market style, so anything perishable had to go into the refrigerator at night. These will probably be okay. And everything on the ground, all the fruits on the ground. And there we go. Everything's jam-packed in the fruit ski. And we got jam-packed in the other fridge ski. Perdoodle, this is where I keep things in the back room. Anyway, my back stock usually goes up higher than that. And that's it. That's my counter. This was my chocolate display on the counter.
Now I'm gonna go out around there and then back into the parking lot.
Okay. Have you used your brake foot yet?
Well, that's what I'm trying to do it for.
Oh, okay.
So I have to. And at some point I'm gonna pretend I have
a kid in front of you or something.
Yeah.
That you have to stop.
I have to stop. Yeah. So don't be surprised when I go.
Ah! Shit. I should have used my seatbelt. We neither of us has our seatbelts on. Well, you're not going very fast.
We're at a parking lot for crying out loud.
How does it feel?
I don't know why it's fine. It's kind of amazing, really. Okay, let's see if I can park and back up.
Okay.
Go out and around again.
Okay. Wow, Mom. We need a bigger parking lot.
I think
with more obstacles. I didn't realize this is like a baby parking lot.
Well, what do you think?
Okay, guys, this is Mom driving down Centennial. No big deal.